Hi guys, tonight you step into the quiet rain-washed edges of Seattle in the 1910s. Drop your city and local time in the comments, tuck in, dim the room, and let the steady tap of rain on the window keep time with your breath. You sit by a small lamp, it glows warm like a tiny sun, your hands smell like cedar and varnish. Outside, the lake laps the pilings with soft, sleepy sounds. Now, breathe in, because you're about to build something that outlives you. You come from timber, big trees, bigger saws, a ledger with numbers that never quite sit still. But tonight your eyes keep drifting to a sketch of wings. The lines are simple, clean, hungry. A few years ago at a fair, you watch a flimsy plane wobble and climb like a nervous sparrow. Your heart does a dumb thing. It says, yes. The voice in your head sounds like a friend who always dares you at 2 a.m, when your brain should be on airplane mode that does not exist yet. You run a hand along a long steamed plank of spruce. It feels smooth as fresh paper. The boat shed around you smells like damp rope, hot glue, and a hint of coffee that tastes like burnt hope. Your partner shows up, a Navy engineer with calm eyes that read problems like subtitles. Together you stare at a frame on sawhorses. It looks like a canoe that wants to fly. The lake outside answers with a small ripple, like it knows a secret you don't. Do you launch this thing and risk your pride, your cash and your name? Or do you file the dream under someday, like the gym membership you keep paying for? You step closer. You touch the ribs of the hull. The fabric is tight as a drum. Somewhere a hammer taps. Patient. Rhythmic. A gull cries. The cold air kisses your face with a bite of wet steel. You imagine the plane skimming water, lifting clean, and your chest warms like a stove that just caught flame. But a quiet fear taps at the door. What if it noses into the lake and eats all your money in one big gulp? You swallow. You smile anyway. You say, we launch. You carry the seaplane out with a small crew. Boots squeak on wet boards. Every footstep echoes like a countdown. The hull slides into the lake with a hush. The engine coughs, then clears its throat like it's about to give a speech. You climb in. You feel the seat hold you the way a good friend holds a secret. You grip the stick. Your gloves creak. The engine's hum rises slow, like a kettle that almost sings. Spray kisses your cheeks. Water peels from the bow. The frame buzzes through your bones. For one long breath, nothing happens. The lake feels sticky, clingy, like a bad Wi-Fi signal. Then the hull loosens. You skim. You rise. The city shrinks as if it is shy. The shed roof becomes a toy rectangle. The lake turns to silk. Wind fingers your hair, cool and clean. Every worry falls off like loose change in a couch. You look down at the water trail. White. Bright. A comet tail you get to write. You turn gently. The plane answers like it trusts. You are light. You are loud. You are home. When you finally settle back on the lake, your teeth hurt from smiling. You try to step out and your knees forget how to be knees. Congratulations. You invent a mess of happy jelly legs. Night drips in. You sit on a crate. A cup warms your hands. You stare at a receipt book, then at the plane. You know this. You can build more. You can do it better. You can make a company from wet wood and wild faith. But money does not grow on dock pilings, and engines don't accept exposure as payment. Do you keep building? Do you hire people who trust a dream just because you say it out loud? You pull a paper from a drawer and scratch a name at the top. Pacific Aero Products. You don't have a logo yet. You have a smell. Glue, oil, lake water, and the sharp citrus sting of fresh-cut spruce. It smells like a door opening. Somewhere, a clock ticks as soft as rain on a hat brim. You make a list. Rivets, fabric, coffee, courage. You put courage at the top because the hardware store never keeps it in stock. New days bloom. You wake to sawdust on your sleeves and a list of bills that look like they unionize at night. You hire a few people with rough hands and bright eyes. You teach them to touch wood like it's alive. You teach them to listen to engines. You learn to read wind with your skin. You find out that launch day feels like a pop quiz you write yourself. You test more. Some planes lift like feathered prayers. Some flop and sulk. One day a strut groans and you land with a heart like a rabbit. Another day a newsman smiles a thin smile and asks if you plan to keep playing with boats that pretend. You nod and offer him a ride. He He turns pale like milk and coughs into his hat. You try not to laugh. Spoiler, he grabs the gunnel like it owes him rent. At night you sit with ledgers. The numbers glare like they don't like you. You push back with a pencil that squeaks. You think about leaving. You think about staying. You think about the first time the hull lifted and your chest felt like sunrise. You know. You stay. One more thing tugs your sleeve. War rises far away like a storm you watch from a porch. The Navy comes around with polite questions and serious faces. They want trainers. They want planes that take punishment and still bring a kid home. You feel the air in the room shift. This can save you. This can change you. This can break you. If you say yes, you scale. If you say no, you keep your small calm and watch the world fly past. So you sharpen a pencil, look at the windblown lake, and pick up the phone. But when the war ends and the orders stop like someone yanks a plug, what do you do when your factory is full and your ledger is empty? Morning. The factory air tastes like dust and last night's coffee. Machines sit quiet like big dogs that want to run but wait for your word. The war is over. The Navy thanks you. Then the orders fade like a song through a wall. You stand in the doorway and feel a cold draft. Your crew looks at you the way houseplants look at a window. You need sun. You need something, anything, to feed this place. You walk the floor. You touch wings you don't ship. You think of families who sleep because you sign checks on time. Your stomach feels like a small fist. You breathe and listen. The quiet stretches. In the office, a calendar flips with a dry flutter. It sounds like a countdown. Okay, wood is wood. A good shop can make almost anything with corners. You start a new list. Desks, dressers, boats. You turn to the team and say, "We build." They blink. You nod. Someone laughs once, like a hiccup. Then saws start and the space fills with a familiar saving hum. Congratulations, you've invented planes that do not fly. They hold socks. The first dresser slides off the line smooth as a new idea. It smells like shellac and patience. The drawers whisper when they close. You run a hand over the top and pretend you do not miss the sound of an engine pressing through air. You sell it to a shop downtown that smells like leather and big promises. The owner counts cash with slow fingers and says, "More like this." Your chest unclenches by one notch. You float a few boats too. They skim the lake with plucky little throats that chug and chatter. A fisherman waves. A couple in wool coats smiles and points like you're a seagull doing tricks. It is not flight. It is not a runway. But it is survival. You thank the boat like it hears you. Nights get longer. You sit with a thermos. Steam clouds the air. Your pencil glides and stops, glides and stops. On the wall hangs an old photo of your first seaplane slicing moonlight into ribbons. It stares down like a dare. You start haunting the post office and the telegraph counter. Someone whispers about a new prize in the sky. Airmail. The government wants letters to fly. Letters do not scream. Letters do not panic. Letters pay. You send notes. You shake hands that feel like river stones. You read rules that sound like a phone contract that bites. You learn route names and distances like a song you can't stop humming. The challenge smells like hot ink and cold ambition. If you can win a route, you can build planes that carry sacks of words in their bellies. If you can build planes that fly in snow and sleet and grumpy wind, you can keep your people, your lights, your dream. The next months taste like coffee stirred with a nail. You rework an old design until it looks new. You shave weight. You add muscle. You test gear in rain that pricks your cheeks like sewing pins. You teach a plane to climb even when it doesn't feel like it. You listen to engines the way a parent listens to a baby. Every cough, every breath, every hiccup means something. You go to a small airfield that looks like a muddy promise. Sacks of mail sit stacked like patient brown animals. A pilot walks up, cheeks windburned, eyes calm, smile thin. You shake his hand. It feels like grit and grit again. You tell him this plane gets him over a cold ridge in bad weather with a heavy bag and a radio that sometimes acts like a prank. He nods. He pats the cowling like it's a dog that might save his life. The first night run happens under a sky that looks like slate. The air smells like wet wool and exhaust. You watch the plane roll, lift, vanish into cloud like it climbs into fog-coloured cotton. Your breath hangs in front of your mouth. You count to a number you make up. You hear nothing. You hate nothing. Then, Soft, far, a hum returns. A light whispers along the edge of the field like a firefly with a job. The wheels kiss mud. The pilot steps down, face calm as a lake at dawn. He lifts a sack and grins. Inside, letters that still feel warm from someone's kitchen. You want to hug the bag. You shake his hand again so your heart doesn't spill out of your chest. You're in the airmail business. More routes open like doors in a long hall. You place hangers along the map like pushpins in a corkboard. Salt Lake, Cheyenne, Boise. Night after night you watch small planes stitch the country together with silver thread. You stand by radios that hiss like snakes and click like beetles. You keep a thermos warm for people who climb down stiff and tired and still choose to go again. One small thing bugs you. You can build planes, you can run routes, but the whole system feels like a jacket you wear over a sweater over a vest. It fits, sort of. You start to think about making one coat that fits the whole thing. Planes, parts, routes, people. A company that flies, builds, and keeps the mail moving with one heartbeat. It sounds clean. It sounds dangerous. It sounds like the kind of idea that makes lawyers rub their hands and grin. Because if you do that, if you build one big, neat, vertical machine, do you fix everything? Or do you paint a target on your back large enough for Washington to see from 1,000 miles away? You sit over a map that smells like old paper and thumbprints. Your finger runs along a line from Chicago to the west. It rides the spine of the country like a small snake. Every dot is a city that needs light when the world feels big and quiet. You circle routes. You pencil times. You add tiny notes. Wind here, snow there, coffee always. You can make this one. United thing. Your pencil presses so hard it dents the desk. The plan grows wings. You form a carrier with your name tied to it like a tag on a suitcase. You add other lines with names that sound like telegrams. You bring in parts makers who turn steel and genius into propellers that bite air like they mean it. You shake hands with folks who build engines that feel like hearts wrapped in iron. Inside the grin, your brain runs numbers like a hamster on a wheel. You're building a whole stack. Parts up high, planes in the middle, routes down low. You call it good business. The voice from the back of the room says, "Careful." People call it other things too. Depression comes like a slow, grey fog that makes money move like cold molasses. Store windows show nothing but reflections. Newspapers smell like ink and bad news. But your routes keep flying. People still write. Freight still needs to go. Your hangars glow warm in the night like little suns along a dark road. Inside, mechanics in oil-stained shirts move with quiet grace. A wrench clinks. A fan hums. Somewhere a portable heater ticks like toes on a floor. You walk the line and talk to pilots whose hair never lies flat anymore. They laugh the way veterans laugh. Short, true, dry. You trade stories about ice on wings, crosswinds that slap you mid-sentence, mountains that rise where maps say plain. You buy them better jackets. You put radios in cockpits that can call help when the sky turns mean. You add lights to runways so a plane finds home even when the night tries to erase it. Then you stare at another kind of challenge. Letters are fine. Passengers are next. People want to fly now, not just their words. They want clean seats, warm cabins, coffee that doesn't taste like engine room. You answer the call the way you always do. You build. The new plane in your mind is bold. Metal skin, twin engines, fast, safe, tight, like a bowstring. You make your team sketch until pencils cry uncle. You feel a jump in your chest you haven't felt since that first lift off the lake. You walk into the shop and the smell hits you. Hot rivets, cutting oil, hope. Sheets of aluminum lean like tall mirrors. The air is alive with the sound of a million tiny decisions. You run your fingers over a panel and watch light slide along the grain like water. You listen to the quick metallic tap 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 of rivets setting. Crisp, bright, tidy. It calms you the way rain on the roof calms a house. When a rival carrier asks to buy the new bird, you shake your head. You say you have to deliver to your own airline first. Their face does a thing. It sits somewhere between annoyed and inspired. They leave with a look in their eye like a science project you're about to regret. You tell yourself it's fine. You built the future. You can keep the future. The future laughs softly in the corner and checks its watch. Rollout day comes with a shy winter sun. The new plane rests on her gear like a cat who knows she's beautiful. Mechanics pretend they don't stare. Pilots circle, hands in pockets, pretending they don't fall in love at first taxi. You climb the steps and the cabin smells like new leather, clean metal, and a promise. You take a seat. You look down the aisle and see it. The next decade, tidy and fast. First flights zip along and the stopwatch smiles. Your airline gets the first seats. Rival lines frown, then go shopping somewhere else. News slips through the shop like a draft under a door. Someone out west is cooking a new design with a name that will live forever. You keep your chin high, you turn the wrenches faster, you pull your delivery schedule, like taffy, and make it stretch. Nights you walk the empty hangar, lights low, the floor shining like a small lake. You hear your steps, slow and hollow. You think about your big stack, parts, planes, routes, and how neat it looks on a chalkboard. You also think about the men in dark suits with pens that can turn neat into illegal with one stroke. You think about the papers that show your name at the top of almost everything that touches the sky tonight. You ask the room if you built a ladder to the stars or a target on your back. The room answers with the soft drip of something ocean-born drying on steel. Then a rumour lands like a black envelope. The government eyes the whole house you build. The word monopoly creeps in through the vents. Someone in Washington leans back in a chair that creaks like a warning. A scandal about mail contracts heats up fast. It hums louder than your best engine. A president you know from newspapers clears his throat and stares your way. You set your jaw. You look at your map where the routes glow in your mind like string lights at a calm party. You tell yourself, you will fight with facts. You will fight with results. You will fight with the truth that people get their mail safe and fast because the stack works. But when the lights in your hangars flicker, and you hear the first orders from DC clatter down the line, do you hold the house together, or do you stand and watch as someone you never meet takes your careful stack and rips it into 3 neat piles? The envelope on your desk has teeth. You don't see them, but you feel the bite. It is heavy. It smells like ink and old glue. The room is quiet enough to hear the soft whir of a desk fan and the tick of a wall clock trying not to panic. You break the seal. Your eyes scan lines that feel colder than the rain on the windows. Words like investigation, contracts, and collusion slide across your brain like ice. Your stomach tightens to the size of a paperclip. You sit back, listen to the paper crunch under your thumb and breathe. Somewhere on the factory floor, a drill whines, stops, and leaves a ringing silence that feels like a missed step on a dark stair. Washington wants answers. They want to know why big routes land with big companies. They want to know if the game is fair. The rumour mill calls it a spoils conference, a name that sounds like leftovers gone bad in the office fridge. You look at your neat stack, parts, planes, routes, and you hear a far-off door creak open. Is it a new chance, or is it a trap that says terms of service updated while you slept? In a hearing room that smells like floor wax and old tobacco, you sit straight in a hard chair. The wood presses a line across your back like a ruler. Cameras pop like tiny fireworks. The ceiling fans push warm air that tastes like dust. A senator with a voice that cuts like a file asks you simple questions with sharp edges. You answer in clean, steady sentences. You talk about safety, schedules, real weather, real mountains, real nights. You talk about letters as promises and pilots as bridges. You say you stack the system so the mail does not fall through cracks. But the room loves a story with a villain. It wants a meme, not a map. Monopoly, someone says, and the word hangs over the table like a storm cloud that checks its radar. You watch their pens scratch. You hear typewriters chatter like busy crickets. You feel the gavel in your bones when it drops. The sound rolls through your ribs and makes your heart skip like a vinyl record with a tiny scratch. Days later, a telegram lands with a clack. The Army Air Corps gets the mail. Your contracts stop. Full stop. It's like someone reaches into the sky and pulls the plug. Your hangar lights still glow warm. Your crew still sip coffee that tastes like a burnt campfire and grit. But the roots you grow like vines go limp. You stare at the map on the wall. Lines you love fade in your head like a photo left in the sun. Night comes cold and fast. The air in February bites like a raccoon with a law degree. You stand near a small field and watch young army pilots climb into old biplanes that act brave and shiver anyway. Their faces look new. Their eyes try to look older than their cheeks. The wind snaps at scarf tails. Engines cough, grab, and roar like stubborn lawnmowers with a PhD. Someone says, "They'll manage." The wind says, "Will they?" The first runs go out. Snow needles sting. Ice crawls onto wings like a slow, mean spider. Radios hiss, then mumble, then lose the thread. You feel sick. A phone rings somewhere in the dark, the kind of ring that makes a room forget how to breathe. Some flights do land, some don't. You hear names you do not know yet, and you say them with your hat in your hand. The army is brave. Bravery does not cancel physics. You pace the hangar with your hands in your pockets, and your jaw sore from clenching. Mechanics sit on toolboxes and stare at the floor like the floor can help. You hear the soft click of a space heater. You hear a wrench roll, bump a boot, then settle. You pour coffee and it tastes like shame and stubborn hope. If you speak, it is slow, and you use words like weather and training and time. In your chest there is a drum that will not quit. Nobody wants boys to die to prove a point. Then a shift. The same people who slam your stack now slam the plan that replaces it. The headlines get loud, then louder. The president hears the noise like it is right in his ear. He steps back from the cliff and orders change. New rules, new bids, new standards. The army steps down. Civil lines come back, but this time with a brand new lock. Builders cannot own airlines. The neat stack you love now becomes illegal furniture. You stand in the doorway of your office and feel a draft that never leaves. Your phone blinks with messages you dread like spam you can't. Filter. Washington says, cut the bundle, separate wings from roots, sell pieces, split the house. Your pen sits heavy on the desk. Outside, steady rain beats time on the roof like fingers on a table. You think, if this is the price to get the mail flying safe again, you pay it. You also think, why does the cure taste like sawdust and lemon? You call your lawyers. They arrive with briefcases that creak like saddles. They lay out papers that smell like glue and ironed cotton. They draw lines that turn your company into a puzzle. You do not cry. You do not shout. You stroke your chin, look at the map, and feel the edge of the blade. This is not about winning. This is about landing without breaking the gear. If you could choose, do you fight to keep the stack and risk everything? Or do you break it yourself and keep the people working? Pause and tell me what you do. Stay stacked or separate. Because by sunrise you sign once, twice, and the ink eats your name into 3 different doors. And when the last pen lifts, the room feels bigger, emptier, and your heartbeat sounds like a slow prop turning by hand. The conference room smells like paper and fresh-cut erasers. A big map lies on the table, corners pinned with coffee mugs, elbows, and a lonely stapler. A lawyer pulls a string across the country like he measures a storm. Another taps a pencil that clicks at the exact speed of your patience. You hold a letter opener that feels too much like a knife. Everyone talks in careful voices like nerves wrapped in bubble wrap. You put 3 blank folders in a neat line. Your world now fits into these. The first reads airplanes, the second airlines, the third engines and parts. It looks simple the way a recipe looks simple. 3 steps and a cake. You know better. This is a cake you must bake while it falls. You start with airplanes. The shop is still here, humming with a sound like rain on a tin roof. Seattle smells like wet cedar and loyal sawdust. The sign above the door keeps your name, but it feels different in your mouth now. The team stays, the jigs stay, the patterns stay. The smell of hot rivets stays like a friend. When you walk the floor, you touch aluminum, not route maps. You listen for the music of a straight line. Tap, set, seal. Planes rise from benches like silver fish from a river you refuse to leave. The second folder takes the routes. The airline peels away like a sticker you placed just right the first time. It hurts to lift. Hangars move to a new ledger. Pilots keep their jackets, keep their stories, keep their maps. They lose your name on their paychecks and keep your engine hum in their bones. You stand at the edge of a runway and watch a plane with a new logo climb the way it always does. The air does not change its mind. Lift is lift, even when the letterhead changes. The third folder claims the eastern factories. Engines, propellers, tools that turn thunder into thrust. They move into a clean box with a new title, United Aircraft, its own proud animal. You shake hands, firm and long. You say things like, "We'll still be cousins." Somebody makes a joke about Thanksgiving dinner and uninviting the gravy. You laugh, because the other choice is to break something you can't fix. Your pen moves. Ink loops like calm water. Sign here, initial there, Date here, breathe there. Your wrist aches. Your name becomes a ladder for other feet to climb. Congratulations! You invent a company jigsaw puzzle with the picture missing and still make it fit on the first try. You step out into a hallway that smells like wax and old phone calls. A secretary passes, her shoes whispering on the floor. She smiles a small, brave smile, the kind that belongs in a first aid kit. You nod. You are not a villain. You are not a saint. You are a builder who just handed out rooms in a house because the town changed the rules overnight. At lunch, your sandwich tastes like cardboard trying its best. A friend sits across from you, tie loosened, eyes soft. He says, "It's fair now." You nod. You know fairness is a moving target that hides behind new rules every few years like a cat under a couch. But he's right about one thing. The mail flies, and the boys in heavy coats live longer to complain about the coffee. Afternoons turn into a ritual. You walk the factory. You run a finger along the smooth back of a wing and feel the faint ridges of rivet lines like braille for the brave. The air shimmers with the heat of the work. A long hose sighs. A crane whispers as it slides. You rest a palm on a new fuselage and you feel steady. You built this way before you built roots. You can build this way again and again until your hands forget how to be still. But the evenings hit different. You go home to a quiet house that looks out over water, the colour of a pewter coin. The steps complain politely under your feet. The radio murmurs from another room. A soft voice in a tin can telling you the market responds, and the capital regroups. You pour tea. Steam curls like a lazy ghost. The cup warms your fingers. You sit. You listen to nothing. It sounds like grief with good manners. The new law draws a final line. If you build planes, you do not own airlines. Not now, not again. You think about the symmetry of it. The sky belongs to everyone, but the door you use must be the one you're assigned. No jumping lines, no skipping stairs. It is a clean rule that also feels like a fence in a field you planted. You get letters from pilots who started on your payroll. The envelopes carry grease marks and tiny doodles of wings. They say they miss the old stack and they like their new paychecks. Both can be true. You set the letters in a wooden tray and run a thumb along the edges. They feel like thin planks in a bridge you still help hold, even if you stand somewhere else now. Here's the strange part. The break clears your view. You stop checking the airline's weather. You stop timing the route schedules with a wristwatch that never leaves your pulse alone. You start staring at drawings that look like metal geese with long, thinking faces, speed whispers, range whispers. The world is big again in a good way. Your engineers grin like clever foxes and talk about 4 engines and wings that shrug off ice. A rumour from down the coast says a rival's passenger plane wins hearts and ham sandwiches. Fine, you're not running the seats anymore. You build the bodies that keep promises. If you sit in that chair another month, do you learn to love this clean split? Or do you hear the doorknob turning on the office behind you, the one with your name on it, and feel the urge to lock it and hand the key back, because there is one more signature in your pen, and it waits for sunset. You stand in your office at dusk. The room holds that blue hour light that makes everything look honest. The desk is clean. The blotter smells like leather and ink. A ship's bell you keep for luck glows dull brass. The rain on the window whispers a steady beat, soft as a cat's purr. Papers sit in a neat stack. The top page is short. 3 sentences, a date. Your name. You do not pace. You do not stall. You pick up your pen and it feels like a small oar in a big river. You row once, twice, and your name flows. You step back from the desk. The air feels lighter and heavier at the same time. You're not the head anymore. You're not the bridge. You're a man with sawdust in his blood who chooses a different workshop. You walk the factory one last time as you. The big doors stand open to a grey day. The air tastes like aluminum dust and warm oil. A rivet gun chatters a bright little song. You stop to watch a team set a skin panel. Tap, set, seal. Their hands move with the calm of people who trust light and measurements. You want to tell them something wise and short. You settle on, keep building. It is enough. Outside, a river barge groans like a tired bull. A gull laughs at a joke only gulls like. You pull your coat tighter. A young engineer hurries up, cheeks pink from the chill. He holds a blueprint the size of a small mattress. He talks about a new bomber with 4 engines and a belly like a barn. He says range, like it means reach out and hold a friend's hand across an ocean. You smile. You bless it without using the word. He grins and trots away, a fox with a new map. Home shifts shape. You spend mornings with timber again, the smell that raised you. You walk land that creaks under boots and tastes like rain you can chew. You learn the names of trees like you learn new neighbours. You ride a horse with a mind of its own and forgive it every time. You stand on a dock and watch a small boat thumb a thin wake across a flat bay. Your heart beats slower, not weaker. It keeps time with low water and long shadows. People still ask your opinion. You keep it short. You give smart nods and simple sentences. You donate, you advise, you step back. You read letters that say your old shop hums day and night now. The world leans toward war again like a long ship turning. The factory lights stay on. Trains bring in metal that rings like church bells when a crane sets it down. Those four-engine birds in the blueprints begin to stand up on their own legs. You hear their deep voices on clear nights, far, low, steady, as if the sky breathes with them. Sometimes you walk to the water after dinner. The air tastes like salt and wood smoke. A far city hums like a pocket full of coins. You think about the first skinny seaplane lifting off a lake that smelled like cold coffee and wet rope. You think about letters in bags, pilots in storms, fans in ceilings, gavels, rule books, and the soft human wish that a message gets where it needs to go. You do not feel cheated. You feel finished with one part and faithful to the next. News drifts in with the tide. A rival's passenger plane fills the country with chairs and coffee service. Your company, your name over the door you do not open now, focuses on stronger bodies, longer wings, bigger hearts. The teams you trained hire new hands and teach them to listen to rivets the way you once taught them to listen to water. Measure twice, you told them, then measure again. They do. The results roll out on fresh rubber and look like promises with shadows. Some nights your phone rings and you ignore it the way you ignore a push notification about a sale you don't need. You pour tea. You sit with the steady tick of a mantle clock. You smell lemon oil on old wood. You flip through a book of birds and stop on one that glides with hardly any flap. You trace the line with a finger and smile. Air holds those who respect it. It forgives those who prepare. It forgets those who brag. Here is a quiet truth. Leaving is a kind of building. You build space for others to stand taller. You build a boundary that says, this part is yours now. You build a life that honours the first life without dragging it behind you like a suitcase with a bad wheel. You wave at the sky instead of trying to own it. Would you have stayed and kept fighting rules until your bones were tired? Or would you do what you just did? Step back while the shop is strong and trust the next hands? Tell me, stay or step back? Because the world outside this window is about to lean all its weight into the air. The floors in your old factory will shake with the thunder of big work. The blueprints will grow teeth and wings, and the name you leave on the door will meet its hardest test yet. You stand on cold concrete that smells like rain and gasoline. The field shivers under a grey Ohio sky. Your plane waits at the line, tall and long, 4 engines tight as knuckles. It looks like a silver knife that wants the sky more than you have ever wanted anything. Brass coats gather by the fence. Reporters clutch notebooks like hungry birds. Someone whispers that this is the future. You hope the future agrees. You run your palm along the smooth skin. The metal feels cool and proud. A mechanic leans in and says, "She's ready." His voice stays calm, but his fingers drum on the cowl like a ticking clock. Inside the cockpit, switches sit in tidy rows. Gauges stare back with neat little eyes. You breathe out slow. Your breath fogs and vanishes. The leather seat grips your coat. The throttle knobs sit like chess pieces waiting for your hand. Engines cough, then catch, one by one. The sound climbs from rough to rich, like a choir warming up. The air trembles, your ribs hum. You taxi out, light on the pedals, nose sure, tail steady. The runway runs away from you in a long grey ribbon. You push the throttles. The world tilts. Your head pushes back into the seat. You feel weight turn into lift, the sweet trade you live for. And then, something is wrong. The nose rises too eager. The control feels stiff like a door that forgot how to open. Your brain flips through pages fast. The field rushes under you, then falls away. The new plane climbs, but the climb wobbles, like a tall kid on wobbly stilts. A voice in your head starts counting down in all caps. You fight for smooth. The stick answers like it's tied to a small stubborn bull. Wind shows its teeth. The left wing dips. Your jaw sets. You ease, you correct. You talk to the machine the way you talk to a scared horse. Steady, steady, easy now. The field slides past at a wrong angle. A reporter drops his pencil. The brass breathe in as one. The ground leans the wrong way gets closer, then the worst sound. Metal screams, a wing clips, heat flares, your stomach drops out. You taste iron. The great bird folds like a paper fortune teller, the kind kids make to tell a fake future. Fire writes hard truth in orange lines you can't read without tears. Men run. Foam hisses. Sirens wail thin and useless against the heat. Time slows the way it does when a glass slips from your hand and you know you can't catch it. The smoke lifts to a sky that looks like it also wants to cry. You stand very still. Your hands shake anyway. Faces around you are pale and older now. The ground crew look at the runway as if it has betrayed them. You look at the bent black shape and feel a cold hole open in your chest. Names are read. Hats come off. History turns a page you did not plan to write. The talk starts fast. Too big. Too complex. Too much for one pair of hands in a cockpit. People love a simple villain. They point at the plane because the plane cannot point back. But you stand in a small room with a fan that clicks on every turn and you say, "Not again." Your voice sounds strange, like it comes from the next room. You pull a pad close, you draw a box. Inside the box you write simple lines. Release this, unlock that, set those, check again. You tape the list next to the control. You read it out loud, you touch each thing. You make a pilot echo you like a friend who never forgets a birthday. Congratulations. You invent a boring little miracle that saves lives. A list. A ritual. Read. Point. Speak. The list does not care if you're famous. The list does not care if you're tired. The list turns 100 little traps into a quiet, safe road. Later someone will make a cute name for it. Today it is just paper and pencil and a promise to go home for dinner. The army looks at the wreck and at the numbers from before the fire. Range that stretches like hallway lights into the night. Speed that bites. Strength that makes mountains a little shorter. Rules say, buy the safe twin with less to go wrong. Pride says pick the big bird that crosses oceans. Men in grey suits rub heads. One leans in and whispers, "We need reach." The air outside presses its face to the glass and waits. You go back to the shop. The hot smell of cutting oil and fresh paint wraps around you. Frames rise from jigs like ribs of a whale learn to fly. Rivet guns tap a steady beat, bright and sharp. A foreman walks by with a clipboard that looks like it knows more than anybody. You make changes. You train crews to speak the new ritual as a single voice. You mark controls bright. You hang small flags that shout before a switch lies to you. You print the list in big letters that no one can pretend to miss. A quiet order comes, small but real. Not 100. Not even close. Enough to keep hands busy and minds sharp. Enough to keep the idea alive. Enough to make the whisper in the army halls a little louder. You watch a new bird roll out. The same but wiser. It smells like do-over and fresh metal and second chances. The paint shines like rain on stone. The engines purr at idle, patient. You feel your shoulders loosen a notch. A test crew climbs in. Heels click on the floor. Check, call, check, call. The words sound like a prayer and a recipe. The door closes with a friendly thump. The props blur. The plane moves, gathers itself, lifts. It looks clean in the air, steady as a table. You watch until it is a dot, then a speck, then a feeling in your chest. A week later you sit with a trolley coffee that tastes like hot pennies and courage. The newspaper on your lap talks about bad markets and new radio shows. A tiny item on page 4 says the Big 4 engine keeps flying. You fold the paper slow. You tuck it under your arm like a secret you will share later. That night, you stand at the edge of the field. The grass whispers. The wind slides cold fingers under your collar. A plane wheels in the dark and then the runway lights grab it. Calm and kind. The wheels kiss. The list works. The men walk away. Somewhere a clipboard smiles. If you were the one to choose for a country that feels small against two oceans, do you pick the safe little twin because the rulebook says so? Or do you take a deep breath and bet on the long reach? Because the next time the big bird meets the press, it will carry a new name on its side. and that name will stick like a badge. You stand under a high hangar roof that makes your voice come back to you. The new ship sits in the light like it knows a secret. Reporters whisper, then one of them blurts a name that feels like a punch and a grin at the same time. A fortress. Flying. It sounds like a comic book and a headline and a dare. You do not fight it. You stencil the name on the nose and watch the letters dry. The metal seems to stand a little taller. Guns bloom from clean places like thorns on a rose that got tired of being pretty. Windows widen. The nose turns clear so eyes can see trouble before trouble introduces itself. The belly gets a lookout. The tail gains a sting. You do not build a bully. You build a guardian that can take a hit and keep going. Still, you keep the lines smooth. A fortress needs grace if it wants to cross a storm. The morning air tastes like cold steel. A crew walks to the ladder, jackets zipped, checklists in their pockets like small, faithful dogs. They strap in. They say the words. They touch the switches. You watch the throttle hands move together, smooth as a swing door. The props smear into spinning glass. The floor shakes with a low, steady promise. Wheels lift. The fortress slides into the blue and holds it. On another day, you plot a line to the sea, not ashore. A ship far out, steam and steel and wake. You run fingers over a map that smells like dust and salt. You trace wind, fix times, watch the second-hand crawl. A crew goes feet wet and keeps going. Clouds pack like grey sheep. Radio whispers tick by. You imagine their eyes sweeping sky and water, wide and patient. Hours pass like slow gum. Then, there. A thin line of smoke, a tiny tooth of a ship on the flat back of the ocean. The fortress circles, dips a wing, says hello to a captain who looks up and laughs in pure shock. Back on land, the photos run. People blink. The line between out there and here shrinks like a wool sweater in hot wash. You feel a nation's shoulders straighten. The range is not a rumour now. It is a fact you can point at. You go home and sleep deeper than you did last month. New metal flows into the plant. Jigs learn new songs. A row of fuselages grows like a grove of silver trees. Rivet lines crawl along skins in neat shining braille. Teams move like dance partners who know each other's steps. The checklist lives on every tongue. Read, point, speak. You listen to the rhythm. Mixture, set, props, set, cowl flaps, check. The voices are calm and warm. You feel your heart slow to match them. Training turns young faces into calm ones. They learn to land on short fields and long ones, in crosswinds that slap and in fog that swallows. They fly at night over towns that glow like embers in a big black pan. They learn to trust instruments when their ears lie. They learn to trust the list when their nerves try to make them skip. You stand in a back row at a graduation and clap until your hands sting. You feel old and new at once. Design never sleeps. Your engineers stare at drafts deep into the night, eyes dry, shirts wrinkled, brains buzzing like neon signs. More fuel, better skin, cleaner air through the cowls, a tail that forgives, a wing that whispers yes at higher weights. You add a new brace here, shave a pound there, move a wire, seal a seam. The plane grows up without losing the grin in its stance. The world across the ocean scowls. Radios bring the sound of a long argument that turns mean. You hear boots on roads you will never walk. Maps on your wall gain pins and notes that feel like gravity. Orders move from polite to urgent. The factory's nightlights stop going dark. Coffee becomes less of a drink and more of a blood type. You step into a quiet cabin on a test run and sit in a jump seat. It smells like canvas and lead pencil and new leather, a library that can fly. The crew runs the list. The words feel like a lullaby for tough people. Wheels up, gear locked, climb power set. You look down, and the river below looks like a silver ribbon someone left on the world. A layer of cloud slides under you like white fleece. The sun breaks the edge and smears gold on every strut. You close your eyes and listen to the 4 engines hum 4 notes that blend into one long comfort. Back on the ground, a kid from the line asks if it's true you can fly on 3 engines, or 2, or limp home on 1 if you baby it. You smile and say, "You bring her home if you can. You bring your crew home always." He nods like he just memorised a new rule that matters. A rival company's passenger ship fills airports with clean suits and smiles. You do not mind. Let them serve coffee. You serve distance. You serve a promise that steel and will can keep a country safe. The trade feels right in your bones. A letter arrives on thin paper. The army wants more, faster. They want the big one rolling and rolling and rolling. Your pencil sketches juggle deliveries and upgrades and hard limits. Your calendar looks like a crossword puzzle that swears at you. You hire more hands, you buy more tools, you walk the line and remember every name you can. You slip nicknames on the ones you forget and they pretend not to notice. One evening you sit on the hood of a truck and watch a takeoff you have watched 1,000 times. The tyres puff smoke, the tail lifts, the wings bite. The ship lifts clean and steady. You feel the old lift in your chest. It never gets old. The wind rustles your collar like a polite friend. A light plane lands on the far side and bounces once. You wince and then grin when the pilot catches it. You mutter, "Easy," as if he can hear you. Would you climb into the nose of this thing and ride it into weather on purpose, for the sake of showing the world it can be done? Or would you stay on the ground and keep the wrenches honest? Because while your fortress grows teeth and reach, another idea waits in the next hangar. A round body built to turn the sky itself into a gentle room. You step into a cabin that feels different the moment the door thumps shut. The walls curve like the inside of a barrel, smooth and strong. The air inside is soft on your ears. No sting, no hollow headache. The light falls warm across leather seats and polished trim. A steward smiles with the calm of a person who trusts the machine. You sit. You press a palm to the window and feel only a cool kiss, no bite. This is not a bomber. This is a living room that flies. Outside, engines spin up with a satin hum. You know these wings. They come from a tough cousin that wears guns and grit. But the body is new. A round tube that holds pressure like a secret. Fans scoop thin air and thicken it. Valves whisper open and shut. The gauges tell you the truth. Outside there is hard blue at high height. In here there is a gentle day at a tall hill. Your ears pop once, then relax. A thin wedge of fear you did not know you carried slides out of your shoulders and melts. The plane runs, leaps and climbs right through a blanket of cloud. The cabin does not notice. Coffee sits still in a cup. A spoon hardly trembles. The sky above lies bright and wide, a white floor under a blue ceiling. The pilot calls back on a phone, voice calm and close. Smooth at this level. He does not yell over wind. He does not fight a buck. He turns a knob and the cabin holds an easy breath. You look at your hands and laugh because they are not gripping anything. You stroll the aisle with a silly grin. A woman in a hat reads a magazine. A man writes a letter with neat loops. 2 kids press noses to the window and try to count lakes. The smell in here is lemon oil, warm fabric, and a hint of coffee that isn't burned to death by a space heater. You stand by a round window and watch the world slide like a soft map. The cloud tops look like whipped cream someone forgot to stop whipping. Sun glows, metal twinkles. You lean on the frame and feel the structure quietly say, "I got you." In the hangar, the engineers do their dance with calipers and chalk lines. They speak about bleed air and pressure doors in voices that sound like bedtime stories for gearheads. They show you how the round keeps stress even, how a circle says no to cracks that love sharp corners. They run a test where they pump the cabin like a tyre and listen for leaks with soap and patience. Bubbles bloom, get marked, get fixed. The smell of sealant wraps the air like a stubborn hug. A buyer from a big airline walks the floor in a suit that creaks when he breathes. He taps his pen against his teeth and asks about range, speed, height, cost, and coffee. You answer with numbers and a slow smile. He steps into the cabin and sits, and the smile becomes his. He signs. You shake. The paper crackles. The future for regular people in regular clothes moves a few feet closer. You take her on a long run over mountains that used to scare pilots like old ghosts. The clouds pile thick over peaks like great grey loaves of bread. Old planes would skate along the valleys and duck and weave. You look out now and the peaks are a flat painting under you. The cabin is a hush with a warm undertone of engine. A steward sets down a tray that never slides. You trace a line on the window where the sun draws a bright stripe. You think airports will feel different now. Schedules will feel like promises, not guesses. People will plan dinners in cities far away and actually make them. On the ground, you watch mechanics pull panels and run hands along wires. The round body shines a different shine, like a high-end pot in a clean kitchen. The floor crew respects it the way you respect a new knife. Careful, proud, a little in love. They talk about how many pounds of air a cabin needs and how a valve listens to a spring. They swap stories with the bomber guys next door. Wrenches move between worlds, and the shop sounds like a choir with two halves singing different words to the same tune. A small test goes bad one afternoon in a way that reminds you that Sky never gives guarantees. A lesson follows as lessons always do. Written in ink you wish you didn't have to use. You change a part. You update a page. You walk the list with 2 fingers on the paper and your jaw set. Air forgives a little if you respect it a lot. Airlines paint their names on the round belly and slide her into the blue. You watch one lift into sun and hold a smooth line that looks like handwriting. The idea lands. This is how people will travel when they do not want to gamble. High, smooth, warm, on time. The bomber next door is a shield. This is a bridge. Both matter. Both come out of the same stubborn belief that you can shape metal to serve a human wish. You go home late and sit by a radio that glows like a small orange moon. The voice inside talks about far capitals with hard names. Storms overseas gather like heavy coats on pegs by a door. Your factory's night lights paint the clouds above the river, a warm halo that says, "We're awake." You sip tea, you look at your hands, you look at the ceiling. You know what is coming, even if you don't know the shape yet. Would you choose this round room when a winter storm lines up over the pass, or would you take the rough ride low and hope the mountain lets you pass? Tell me, smooth above or tough below? Because in the next chapter, the shop will stop being a shop and start being a city. The planes will grow large enough to carry the weight of whole plans. The drawings will bloom into a machine as long as a promise, with a belly full of distance and a cockpit that looks like a quiet church. And you will build it under pressure you can't bottle. The whistle blows before dawn, a long tired yawn that wakes the river. You ride a crowded bus that smells like wool, coffee and rain. The windows fog. Someone draws a tiny airplane with a finger, and it smiles for 1 second before it melts. At the gate, a guard checks badges under a lamp that hums like a tame bee. You hold yours up. The photo never looks like you at 5 a.m, but the guard lets you through. The turnstile clicks like a metronome. Your steps match it without trying. You step inside and the heat hits. A warm, oily breath from 1,000 machines waking up. The floor shines with a thin film of last night's work. Overhead, cranes roll slow, their wheels whispering like quiet thunder. Tool cribs line the aisles like small libraries where wrenches are books. A board on the wall shows shifts like train schedules. Every line says now or sooner. Posters yell in all caps, speed, quality, safety. You nod back like they're your aunt who never whispers. You stand on a catwalk and look down. It's not a shop, it's a city. Streets of yellow lines, houses of jigs and fixtures, rivers of parts on dollies, tiny parades of rivet teams with hoses like firemen. Cafeterias glow at the edges like warm ponds. A clinic sits ready with clean white beds and a nurse who can set a finger, and your heart with the same look. The loudspeaker coughs, then speaks, and the whole place leans an ear. It sounds like a giant in the ceiling who reads the weather. You walk the line. A woman with a red scarf smiles, flips down her visor and pins a skin panel with a quick, sharp rhythm. Pop, 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 like corn in a pan. Her partner follows with a bucking bar, hand steady, arms strong. Their eyes meet, nod, move on, repeat. The row behind them sets stringers that look like silver ribs. A man checks measurements with a ruler that has more fingerprints than a candy jar. He mutters numbers the way some people say prayers. Buses keep arriving. Shifts trade places like tides. Night gives its tools to morning and walks out blinking into grey light. A kid from the countryside stares up at the roof like it's a cathedral. He tucks his lunch in a locker and his fear under his hat. A foreman with a clipboard that could swat a dragon walks by and says 3 things. Eyes up, hands safe, lists first. He taps the last word twice with his pencil. Lists first. You pass a stack of aluminum sheets that feel cold as truth. The edges shine like fresh ice. A forklift sighs beside you. It smells like rubber and faint pancakes from the cafeteria. A woman in overalls steers it like a careful boat. She has a patch on her sleeve shaped like wings. She earned it, everyone knows. No one says it out loud more than once. Rain drums the roof. It sounds like fingers on a desk when a teacher talks too long. You climb another set of stairs. Above your head, the roof hides under a strange new skin. From the sky, it looks like a sleepy neighbourhood. Fake grass, fake roads, tiny clotheslines frozen in a wind that never blows. You stood on it once and almost waved at the pretend milkman. Down here you feel safer than you did last month. Someone paints a shutter on a fake house with a little brush, steady and calm. It is funny and not funny at all. You duck into a classroom. A white-haired instructor draws a wing on the board. Chalk squeaks. He talks about load paths and how every rivet is a promise. He passes around a bad part marked in red like a failing grade. Everyone touches it and frowns. You throw it in a bin that says reject. The bin makes a loud, honest clank. It feels good. You want that sound to be a ringtone for your brain. Your office smells like pencil shavings and damp maps. The calendar blocks look like bricks. Each brick has a number someone else wants last week. Phones sit heavy as anvils. One rings. You lift it. The voice is polite and iron at the same time. It asks for more than you have. You say yes with a jaw that pretends not to ache. When you hang up, you look at a line on a chart that climbs like ivy. You can do this. You have to. Lunch tastes like coffee that lost a bet and stew that wins a hug. People sit shoulder to shoulder, sleeves rolled, pins on hats, tired eyes bright. A woman shows a photo from her wallet. The boy in a sweater grins like he knows miracles happen. He likes trains, she says. He'll like planes, you say, and you mean it like a promise you will build with bolts. Back on the floor, an inspector rolls a mirror on a stick under a seam. He checks the back of the work the way a parent checks under a bed. Good. Tight. True. He writes a tiny mark with a pencil that never seems to get shorter. A man delivers a crate of bolts with labels neat as doctor's handwriting. Another opens a box of plexiglass and strokes it like it's a pet. No scratches, he whispers to no one and everyone. Somewhere a siren barks once. Everyone freezes, then breathes again as the speaker says, "Test! Only a test!" You feel the moment sit in your bones anyway. Posters on the wall remind you, keep quiet, keep steady, keep moving. The three keeps. You add a fourth in your head, keep human. You walk slower at the next station and just listen. The beat of the guns, the hiss of air, the soft laugh when a bolt goes in right the first time, the thin rip of paper on a parts box, the sweet squeal of a rubber tyre turning over waxed floor. On the far end, a nose section waits, round and clear. A worker cleans the plexi with a cloth that leaves no lint. Light makes a bright bell sound when it hits that curve and slides off. In another bay, wing halves meet like two hands shaking. A crane lowers a spar. It fits. The foreman says nothing. He just lets out a long, slow breath that sounds like rain letting up. By evening, the shop hums at a lower pitch, but it does not sleep. Third shift walks in, a sea of hats, scarves, boots that don't care about cold. You stand on the loading dock and watch the city lights outside smear in the rain. Inside, the steel stays warm. The night crew takes the tools like runners take a baton. You hold the door and they file past. You want to say a speech. You settle for thanks. It is enough. Would you keep the line running through the night if the parts are tight and the calendar growls? Or would you stop and recheck every station even if it bends the chart? Tell me, push through or pause? Because at the end of this long haul, a new kind of giant waits. Pressurized, far-sighted, and very fussy about heat. You stand beneath a belly that looks like a silver barn. The fuselage stretches and stretches until your neck complains. Inside runs a tunnel, round and strong, that promises shirt sleeves at cold heights. The wings carry engines big as small cottages. The nose is a glass chapel for a bombardier who must see the world and aim into history. Turrets sit like quiet porcupines, each with eyes and nerves of their own. You touch the skin. It is smooth and stubborn. The tag on your clipboard calls it something tidy and official. Your crew calls it the big one. You step into the cockpit. The air smells like canvas, pencil shavings and new wires. Switches line up in ranks. Gauges wait with blank patience. A book sits between the seats, thick and bossy. A young pilot runs a finger down a page and whispers to himself like he studies for an exam that decides more than a grade. He taps a checklist with the tip of a glove. He meets your eyes and nods. You nod back. He returns to the book as if it is an old, kind friend he must not disappoint. Taxi. Throttle. Lift. The giant steps into the sky like it means to stay there. At altitude, the cabin speaks in a soft voice. Warm. Calm. The windows show a world turned small and quiet. Down below, mountains look like folded blankets. In here, a pencil does not roll off a table. Someone pours coffee without muttering a prayer. It feels like you finally teach the air to play nice. Then the engine coughs in a way nobody likes. Heat builds. The needle struts past normal, the way a kid sneaks past curfew. A smell punches through the nice smells, hot metal and something that used to be rubber. The crew moves like dancers who practiced for this exact bad song. Mixture. Cowl. Property spray. The checklist talks. The hands obey. The fire still snarls. You land hard. The brakes bark. The crew steps down, faces calm, hair damp at the temples. They walk toward you and their eyes ask a question that does not need words. You gather the chiefs. You pull the engine apart like a puzzle that thinks it is smarter than you. You find where the air learns to be lazy and the fire learns to be rude. You change baffles. You change flow. You add guards where lines wander too close to mean heat. You beef up a bottle that kills flames. You print a new page for the book. You breathe. You send it back up. For a while it goes well. Then a day comes that you hate to remember. A test flight leaves the river. The engine runs away, red-faced and angry. Fire crawls where fire should never go. The giant comes back toward the city and does not make it. The sound of the crash reaches you like a slap through cloth. You run. The smoke smells like loss you cannot name. You say a name, one you respect, and it breaks in your mouth. Later you walk the wreck with gloves on and a heart that will not slow down. You learn. You swear you learn. You write changes with a pencil that digs a groove in the paper. You do not let the pencil shake. Orders do not wait for grief to be done. The phone talks like a general who skipped sleep. It wants this bomber yesterday and the day before. In Wichita, a floor wider than a cornfield hums day and night. In Renton, crews move like water around a dock. In Omaha and Marietta, birds stand in line like shiny freight trains. You send jigs by rail under tarps that flap like shy flags. You send teams by air with memorized steps in their pockets. You send drawings thicker than Bibles and updates as often as gossip. You keep a master list that looks like a crossword with teeth. You keep it in your head too because the paper can't feel the clock. The pressurized body keeps its promise better than the engines keep their tempers. Your round room lessons pay rent. Seals hold, valves listen, doors latch like honest handshakes. You lay your palm on the inside wall while a winter sky outside sits at 30 below, and you feel fine. It makes you brave and careful at the same time. One morning a plain car pulls up to a side door. Men step out with brief faces and light coats. They ask for a certain airframe, a certain set of changes, a certain hush. Turrets off, weight down, doors different, a tail code that means nothing on paper, and everything to someone drawing runways on an island you can't visit on a map without squinting. You nod. You do it. You do not write the whole why. You label it special project and keep your voice at kitchen table volume. The days smear. The line learns new steps. You keep spare engines warm like bread under a towel. The crews practice a dance that ends with fire out. You hang a small sign over one station. 5 seconds faster. People grin and move 5 seconds faster. Another sign says, "Don't skip the book." Nobody skips the book. A delivery pilot runs a hand along the cowling and says, "Be kind today," as if the engine speaks English. The airplane does not speak at all. It just waits for you to mean what you promise. You walk out at night. The plants glow like small cities. A train hoots. The river breathes. Your pockets smell like metal and soap. You stare up into the dark and think of a line that curves over an ocean, out and back. Your hand closes without thinking around a small coin in your pocket, a silly thing from a vending machine. You rub it like a charm and feel foolish and human. Do you ship the next block of giants right now because the calendar has teeth? Or do you hold them 2 weeks to add every last? Fix you dream tonight? What would you do with the clock staring you down? Because some of these giants roll to a desert and leave lighter than they came. They carry a new kind of silence that will not fit in this room. Midday sun sneaks through high windows and lands on your desk in a warm square. You stretch your back and head for the roof. A narrow stair smells like paint and dust. At the top, you push a door and step into a pretend neighbourhood built on tar and timber. There are fake houses with fake lawns, tiny trellises with fake vines, and a painted driveway that leads to nowhere. A few props sit here and there. A bicycle that never moves, a picnic that never happens. From above, a spy thinks this is a quiet block with nosy neighbours. From below, you know it is a blanket over a beating heart. You crouch by the edge and look down through a tiny seam. Inside, the shop flows. Silver fish of fuselages, bright scales of skins, long bones that find mates and become wings. You hear it even up here. Tap, set, seal, clank, roll, lift. The soft whoosh of air hoses, the occasional honest laugh. You close your eyes and let the sound settle on you like rain. When you open them, a painter touches up a fake shingle with quick, sure strokes. Her brush barely whispers. She never smears. She smiles and salutes with the brush. You salute back, because why not? Back at floor level, the day tucks its shirt in and gets busier. New faces learn old tricks. A grandmother with hands like cedar shows a teenager how to buck a rivet and feel its seat with her palms. "Trust your fingers," she says. The girl nods and does it again. Better. An inspector with a mirror on a stick checks a seam you can't see and hums a tune older than everyone here. A foreman walks by and doesn't stop the song. He knows it helps. There's a corner where people pin notes from far away. A scrap of a newspaper, a photo creased where someone held it too tight. A letter with greasy fingerprints that say, "This panel saved us," in a scrawl that makes your throat tight. Next to it, someone tacks a little drawing of a cat wearing goggles. The cat looks very serious about safety. You leave it there because it works. The cafeteria smells like grilled cheese and effort. A woman pulls off her gloves and counts the dots on her hands where the bucking bar kissed through the leather. She laughs. "Beauty marks," she says, and everyone near her agrees. A man from stores tries to balance 2 bowls and a milk bottle and loses the milk. It slides, tips, saves itself at the last second. Everyone cheers like they just watched a landing in a crosswind. He bows, ridiculous and perfect. Out on the flight line, bombers nose into sun. Tires leave small black commas on concrete. A pilot in a cap squints, then smiles at the way a new bird sits on her gear, like a dancer ready to step. A crew chief drags a finger along a panel and frowns at a smudge only he can see. He buffs it, out with his sleeve, and nods to himself, a tiny ceremony that means everything. A jeep putters by with a sign taped to the hood. "Don't forget your earplugs." Nobody forgets, but they grin at the sign anyway. You climb into a fuselage in progress. It smells like warm aluminum and pencil lead. Someone left a note on a bulkhead. "Hi future, did we do okay?" You run your finger under the words. You whisper, "Yes," because you want it to be true so badly it aches. You keep moving. A woman checks a pressure door and taps the seal with a knuckle. The sound is tight and small. She smiles at the sound like it told a joke only she can hear. A safety drill pops up like a pop quiz. Lights flash, horns chirp, people freeze, look, then flow to marked doors in neat lines. It takes less than a song. Back at benches, they pick up exactly where they left off. The only clue is a wrench resting at a slightly different angle, like it took its own tiny break. Production ramps again. The chart on your wall climbs like a vine that finally found a wall it likes. More than 1 bomber a day leaves all your doors, all your cities, all your teams together. You watch one lift and you feel a strange mix. Pride, fear, hunger, calm. At the end of the runway, the plane becomes a dot and then nothing. Somewhere far away, it becomes a sound in someone else's sky. Night paints the river black. The lights in the plant turn it into a mirror for stars you make yourself. You stand on the loading dock and stuff your hands in your pockets. Your fingers find a small washer. You hold it between thumb and forefinger and roll it. Roll it. Roll it until the metal warms like a coin. You think of all the small circles in this work. Rivets, gauges, windows, wheels, washers, eyes. And how every circle holds a line, and every line holds a life. A small convoy of trucks idles by the door. Tarps ripple. A soldier signs a paper on your clipboard and hands you a pencil he chewed a little too much. You smile and sign anyway. The trucks roll. The tarps shiver and then settle. You watch their red lights disappear like tiny coals down a long dark hall. You hear the river again, steady, old, calm. If you had to choose tonight between building faster and building safer, with no extra hands to spare, which lever do you pull? Faster and risk a miss, or safer and risk a delay? Write the word in your head. Say it once. Feel its weight. Because tomorrow, a runway on a far island waits for a long silver visitor at dawn, and after that dawn, nothing you build will feel the same again. The runway glows before the sun does. You taste salt, diesel, and coral dust that sticks to your teeth like cheap gum. Palm fronds click in a small wind. A big silver ship waits in the dark, nose pointed at a line of lamps that look like fallen stars. Crews talk in low voices, the way people talk in hospitals and churches. Someone checks a panel with a flashlight that clicks like a bug. Another pats a smooth Bombay door, thinner and different than the usual kind. Inside there is a weight you do not name out loud. You climb the ladder. The metal is cool, a little wet. The cabin smells like canvas, pencil lead, coils of wire, and a new varnish that hasn't learned to be calm. You lay your hand on the checklist and it feels like a seatbelt for the soul. Read. Point. Speak. Your voice is steady. Your finger is true. Nobody looks away from the page longer than a blink. Even your breath follows the steps. Taxi is slow. The airplane is heavy in a way that makes the ground feel nervous. The props bite the dark. The runway lights stretch and stretch and stretch. Throttles forward. The ship gathers itself. Wheels purr and roar. The tail lifts. You whisper inside your head, now, 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 and the nose finally agrees. Lift. The island drops away like a secret you can't keep. Hours become a long rope you pull hand over hand. The ocean is a sheet of ink. The turbines murmur like 4 calm teachers. You stare at dials, write numbers, check, check again. Someone sets a pencil on a clipboard and it does not roll. It is an ordinary miracle that still feels like magic when you are high over nothing. A coast crawls out of haze. Your tongue tastes metal. The target is a mark on a map, and a city with early rice cooking, and doors sliding open to morning. You fly the list with hands that try not to shake. Doors open like a whisper. The belly lightens. The ship rises half an inch as if exhaling. You turn away on the dot you practiced. Every second a nail that must land true. The radio stays plain. Your eyes stay forward. Far behind, the skill earns a colour no chart shows. A wave of air touches you a long time later, like thunder written in a slow language. No cheering, no fist raised, only a silence that presses on the cabin like a heavy quilt. You feel proud. You feel sick. You feel older than lunch. You land. Tires thump. Brakes hold. The props tick in cooling. Men on the ramp look at you and then at the ground, like both are hard to face. Someone hands you water and it tastes like a confession. The debrief room smells like sweat and chalk. You talk about speeds, doors, angles, and wind. You do not talk about the light. Words stack neat and sane in a room that is not. That night, you sit on a crate outside the hangar. The island hums. A mosquito visits your wrist like it owns you. You stare at a bolt caught in a crack in the concrete. You think of what you built. Metal you trained to be kind. Lists you made to bring crews home. Doors you shaved to save pounds. A pressurized body that let humans live above storms. You did your job. You did it well. And now your job lives in a question that does not end. Back home, the shops learn the news in pieces. A headline, a rumour, a telegram with clipped words. People stop at benches with wrenches in their hands and do not move for a count of 5. Then the wrenches move again, like hands that choose to work instead of shout. The roof city keeps its secret face. The floor city does what it always does. Measure, drill, fit, check, tape, sign. A week later, the second dawn looks the same and does not. The same coral, the same masks, the same blue-black sky that changes mine to orange. A different load, a different map. The line of lamps pulls you forward one more time. You go because the order is paper you trained yourself to obey, and because someone decided this is how the killing ends. Fast, hot, final, and then no more. You come home again. The radio says words like surrender and peace. in a voice that shakes with relief and fatigue. People pour into streets back in cities you can't see from here. You do not pour, you fold a cloth, you stack a tool, you rest a forehead on cool aluminum and feel it steady you. You whisper a name you will not tell anyone, and the metal does not answer, because metal never does. At the mess tent, coffee tastes like pennies and then like nothing because your mouth forgets how to taste. Someone jokes, too loud, and the joke falls like a dropped wrench. Someone else tells a story about flying above a tower of cloud that looked like a mountain with a sun inside it. Nobody says good, nobody says bad. They say, we did it. They say, it's over. If you were the one to sign that flight plan, would you have signed it? Or would you have refused and carried that refusal home in your pocket forever? Say it in your head. Feel what it does to your chest. Because in the glow of victory, the loudest sound back at the plant is not cheering. It is the sudden hush of a line that stops all at once and waits to learn how to live in peacetime. The horn that used to start 3 shifts now honks at nobody. You walk the aisle and hear your own steps too well. Hooks hang empty. Crates stay stacked. A broom leans like it needs a friend. A poster that yelled speed looks embarrassed. The chalkboard where you track sorties is a blank face. Peace is beautiful. Peace is also a calendar that cancels on you without warning, like a group chat that dies after the party. Stop work orders slap down like lids on hot pots. The phone rings with hold and defer, and we won't need those. The big jigs sleep under tarps that puff when the roof fans sigh. People carry toolboxes to buses with a quiet you can taste. You shake hands until your wrist aches. You learn the weight of a goodbye that pretends to be, see you soon. Seattle changes its sound. The river sounds louder. The streetcar bell sounds brave. In cafeterias, chairs tilt on 2 legs and no one scolds. In small kitchens, budgets get red ink tattoos. In the morning, a child asks if Mum still makes airplanes, and Mum says, not this week, and smiles a smile that tries to be a bridge. You walk into an office that smells like dust and lost coffee. A new pad on the desk reads civil. You circle it. You stare at old drawings and turn them sideways like an app you rotate on your phone when it refuses to load. You sketch a round body, tall and double, with a lower lounge like a cosy den, and an upper world for rows of seats and hot meals. You borrow lessons from a bomber belly and you sew them into a living room that crosses oceans. You want to sell comfort the way you once sold range. The first mock-up fills a bay like a fat silver whale with nice manners. Steps drop to a lower room with round windows and soft light. You sit down there and the seat hugs you like a couch at your grandma's. A steward folds a napkin with show-off flair. The floor smells like new wool and lemon oil. In your head, you hear jazz and clink of silverware instead of interphone clicks. Pressurization keeps ears calm. The cabin hums like a quiet fridge, steady and kind. You pitch it to an airline man in a suit that tries to make him taller. He touches the banister on the spiral stair like it is a rare fish. He asks about range. You show numbers. He asks about galley space. You show drawers that slide like butter. He asks if the cabin stays smooth above weather. You nod once. Slow. He signs because his customers want to cross water in a chair that treats them like people and not cargo. You sell a few. Not enough to fill the line. Enough to keep tools talking. A new problem walks in wearing a smile. War left the skies full of cheap planes that can haul people for less than your luxury whale. Cuts, bargains, deals. Everyone plays clearance sales like it is Black Friday and you showed up late. You sharpen pencils to nubs and show the math of comfort. You win some, you lose some. You remind yourself that every lull is also a lesson that refuses to be loud. You pay people to learn instead of to leave. Jet work whispers from a wind tunnel down the hall. Swept wings, thin airfoils. Shock that sneaks in at speeds that make propellers look old. A small team stares at smoke lines and draws curves that bend like questions. You lean over their shoulders. The models buzz in the tunnel like angry toys. The data smells like hot metal and chalk dust. On lunch breaks, the ferry still blows its horn and the gulls still argue like cousins at a barbecue. You eat soup that tries and a sandwich that doesn't. You hear someone crack a joke about buying stock in coffee because jets turn sleep into a hobby you can't afford. People laugh because they need to. You breathe easier because the laugh sounds like work starting again soon. You visit storage yards in the desert where warbirds sleep in rows like parked shopping carts. The sun beats down, paint fades, tires slump. You walk past wings that once shook the world and now host lizards. You nod to them the way you nod to an old teacher you meet at the store. You say thank you under your breath. The wind eats the words and is kind about it. Back at the plant, you stand in a ghost-busy bay and listen to nothing for a while. Then, mercifully, a little buzz starts at one end. A drill whines, a crate opens with a wooden sigh. Someone forgets and whistles half a tune. You smile into your collar. The sign on your wall that says "Quality First Stays." You add a small paper next to it. Jets next. People pretend not to notice. They notice. If the market gave you one choice, build a few luxury ships that wow or bet it all on jets that might not sell yet, what would you pick? Safe seats now or speed later? Because a drawing in the next room is about to sprout thin wings, 6 small engines, and a landing gear that looks wrong until it looks right. And when it flies, slow ideas will feel old overnight. You stand under a wing so thin you can't believe men will walk on it. It sweeps back like a falcon's. Light runs along its edge and breaks into a grin. Engines hang in pods like steel beehives, 6 of them, neat in pairs, tucked close so the wing does not forget who it carries. The landing gear makes you blink. 2 big wheels in a line, nose and main, with tiny outriggers at the tips like training wheels on a dragon. Someone mutters, "That can't work," the way people used to say about flying at all. The model lived in a tunnel for months. Smoke traced over it and drew pictures of air that learned to get out of its own way. A captured report from far away showed what sweep does to the shock that kicks you in the teeth at high speed. You add degrees. You shave thickness. You fall in love with curves that would break a straight ruler. The chalkboard fills with numbers that look like a phone plan you should never sign without reading twice. You read them 3 times. Rollout day smells like frost and gasoline. The jet sits low and long, quiet in a way that makes prop lovers feel like they lost a radio station. The cockpit is clean, narrow, focused. No romance. All reason. A test crew climbs the ladder and closes the door with a thunk that sounds like a promise. The runway stretches like your patience. The crowd pretends not to be a crowd. The first takeoff run feels criminal. The ship uses all the concrete you thought you had. The nose lifts late, then more, then enough. Wheels leave the ground. Every jaw drops and then pushes back into its face where it belongs. The jet climbs like a rumour that turns into truth while you watch. The gear tucks in. The outriggers say goodbye to the ground like shy kids. The sound is a high, clean thread instead of a Beethoven drum. You feel it in your ribs anyway. Up there, the wing does the thing it promised in the tunnel. Drag shrinks. Air behaves. The jet goes farther on less, faster than you let yourself hope when you were still erasing math at midnight. The crew calls down. Stable, responsive, even playful if you let it. A bomber that feels like a fighter when you roll. You catch yourself grinning like you found $20 in an old coat. Landing comes with its own new rules. Long final, careful flare. The bicycle gear touches down like a tightrope walker. The outriggers kiss the runway with little puffs of dust. Everyone breathes. A wrench falls somewhere and startles people into laughter that sounds like rain on a hot day. The test chief scribbles notes with a pencil that can't keep up with his hand. The next flights explore edges. High-speed buffet, trim at altitude, hot starts that teach you to respect air that isn't there yet. You tweak inlets. You add fences to tame wayward flow. You beef up brakes that now carry a whole roller rink's worth of heat. You change the checklist so a new ritual can keep the nerves honest in a machine that moves much faster than nerves like to admit. The generals visit, coats tight, eyes hungry. They watch the jet lift off in less time than a coffee order on a bad app. They step into the bay and touch the smooth skin like they know a wish when they feel one. You wheel the chalkboard in and sketch range, speed, ceiling. You draw arrows that outrun old maps. You don't say game changer because you don't need to. The jet draws that word on its own. Pilots come back from first rides with hair flipped wrong and smiles that hang on all day. She wants to go, they say. You can feel the wing think ahead of you. One smacks a palm against the fuselage like greeting a friend at a train station. Another whispers thanks to the brakes and pretends he didn't. You watch their hands as they talk. They draw lazy arcs in the air like their palms still remember the roll. Production hates being told to move fast without falling down. You move anyway, careful and quick. Fixtures learn new shapes. Riveters learn to trust thin skins that still hold like iron. Fuel cells line the wings like hidden rivers. Cables run clean as pen lines. Every station posts a note with one rule circled: don't outsmart the list. It saved you in props. It saves you in jets. It will save you when pride tries to skip ahead. You test a full load takeoff on a hot day and watch the end of the runway come up like a deadline on a Friday. The jet still leaves. Barely. You file that under Do Not Do for fun and write a new line in the book. You build a longer runway where you can. You add thrust where you cannot. You tell the brass, this jet is honest. Treat it like a tool, not a stunt. Orders grow teeth. The bomber becomes a backbone you can see from space if you squint with a poet's heart. The ramp fills with silver arrows parked in neat ranks. On dawns with thin mist, they look like a flock of quiet birds waiting for a hand to open. The old prop boys tilt heads and tip hats. The jet kids tie boots and grin like they know they live where the map bends. You drive home past the river and the cranes. Your hands smell like aluminum and the black crayon the inspectors love. On the radio, a new ad promises the future in chrome and neon. You believe it halfway. At your kitchen table, a sketch of a jetliner sits under the salt shaker. 4 engines, swept wings, a round body that smiles. The bomber taught you the air. The next one should teach comfort at speed. You tap the paper. The paper taps back, or maybe that is just your pulse. Would you jump first into the passenger jet race with this new wing and risk your shirt? Or would you let someone else try and join later with a safer bet? Whisper it to the ceiling. Because the next chapter will follow that salt shaker sketch out to the runway. A yellow prototype that drinks jet fuel and turns Sunday clothes into a regular thing at 30,000 feet. You sign a check with no order and build a jet no one asks for yet. The pen feels heavier than a wrench. Your gut says yes. Your accountant's eyebrows say, please don't. The project tag sounds boring. Numbers and a dash. But the air around it tingles like a live wire. You walk the floor and it smells different now. Hot kerosene, cutting oil, new sealant that stings your nose like a chemistry set left open. Up in the loft, slide rules click like crickets. Smoke lines loop over a small model in the wind tunnel, thin as ribbon candy. The wing sweeps back and your brain feels it. Air gets shy around sharp edges at speed. You give it more sweep, less thickness, and the numbers stop screaming. Across the hall, a pressure test rig huffs and sighs, cycling a round section like a mechanical heartbeat. The metal groans, complains, obeys. You learned about cracks the hard way by reading other people's pain in the morning paper. This time, you get ahead of the headline. Down on the shop floor, the prototype sits on her gear like a cat about to spring. The paint is a bright school bus yellow that makes the whole place feel like a field trip. 4 jet pods hang under the wing like steel lanterns. The landing gear looks ordinary on purpose, comforting, sturdy, not here to show off. Inside there are no seats, no carpet, only wire bundles, racks of black boxes, taped notes, and the smell of pencil shavings and warm electronics. A tech taps a gauge with one clean fingernail and smiles when the needle flirts with the right mark. First engine run. You stand a little too close because you can't help it. The starter whines, the compressor spins, and then the jet lights whoosh, like someone opening a door to a thunderstorm. The noise is a high, polished roar, not the old prop slap you grew up with. It gets into your bones in a new way. Your hat quivers, your shirt flutters, your grin shows too many teeth. Someone offers earplugs like free samples at a supermarket, and you take them because adulthood. Taxi tests roll like a careful first dance. Brakes warm, tyres talk, the nose wheel hunts for the centre line and finds it. You lean into the side window and watch heat shimmer behind the pods like a small mirage you invented. A kid on a bike outside the fence stops, open-mouthed, and forgets to pedal. He will tell this story until he is old. First flight morning, cool air, thin clouds like friendly ghosts. The checklist sits on a knee, thick but not bossy. Read, point, speak. You know that song by heart now. Throttles forward, the jet leans, stretches, and then lift. It feels different. No prop wash, no drumbeat. Just a steady, refined shove. The runway falls away without drama. Houses tilt and become quiet rectangles. The lake lies silver and polite. Up here, the jet feels clean, like a well-planned sentence that lands on a period, not a question mark. You keep it low at first, then climb to where the air thins and the instruments tell truth without shouting. Controls are tight, honest. The wing thinks before you do. You test a gentle bank, then another. You look at the horizon and it looks back steady. The radio voice stays calm. Data good. 2 words. A whole year of sleep packed inside them. Back on the ground, phones wake up like pigeons at a park bench. Air Force folks walk the ramp slow, hands behind backs, eyes curious. They want fuel over oceans and a flying gas station with a metal straw. You nod. You sketch a boom on a napkin, and the boom looks like a good idea that refuses to apologise. Across town, airline men peek in and pretend they aren't counting seats that aren't installed yet. They whisper, "Jets for people." You hear them and don't answer. Yet. Nights. You sit with the math. The company's a table with one leg longer than the rest. This jet is your wedge. You pay for it yourself because a committee won't buy a future until you draw it with noise and speed. You love the risk the way a climber loves the cold rock. Carefully, completely, and only after checking the rope twice. You run pressurization cycles until the test bay smells like hot pennies and soap. A crack tries to start. You catch it. You drill it out, smooth the end so the metal has nowhere to whisper, "Begin." You add doublers where the stress hides. You map every rivet with a pencil like a librarian cataloguing secrets. The structure learns to breathe with the cabin and not argue about it. The yellow jet keeps flying, out and back, higher, faster, longer. The data bends your mouth into a smile you don't show on purpose. The landing gear swings up and down until the hydraulics act bored. The engine boys tweak fuel flow, temperature, and the way the air tastes to the flame. The airplane answers. You write a line in your little book. She wants to go. Orders? Not yet. You show instead. You schedule a demo over home water during a summer party with fast boats, loud crowds, and popcorn that tastes like salt and fun. A pilot with a grin that worries HR winks and says, "We'll make it memorable." You pretend you didn't hear the wink. Would you bet your whole brand on a jet no one has bought, just because your bones say the future is louder and smoother? Or would you wait and let someone else trip first? Because when the yellow bird meets the lake crowd, somebody will turn the sky into a stage, and the phone lines will light up before the applause stops. The lake smells like sunscreen, fried dough, and boat fuel. Hydroplanes growl across the water like angry hairdryers. Kids wave flags. Dogs try to bark louder than engines and fail in adorable ways. You stand on the grass with a paper cup of lemonade that tastes like sugar and hose water. A hush spreads, the way texting a group at once makes everyone look down. Only now they look up. The yellow jet slides into view, sunlight running along its back like a cat. It looks calm, almost casual, like it wandered into the wrong party and decided to stay. It climbs a little, levels, then banks to say hello. You expect the usual, a neat pass, a waggle, a safe goodbye. Instead, the nose tilts, the horizon rolls, and the whole airplane turns all the way over like a gymnast who forgot the word no. You stop breathing. The crowd gasps as one. A man drops his hot dog and doesn't notice. The jet keeps rolling, smooth and slow, a lazy barrel that draws a perfect circle in a blue that suddenly feels too small. No bump, no lurch, no scream. Just grace and gall, and a checklist humming in some pilot's blood. The airplane rights itself, wings level, and hums away like it just tied its shoes. Then it does it again, because why not send the group chat a second photo? The sound you make is half laugh, half prayer. Your lemonade tastes like electricity. Your phone would melt if this were today. Up on the hill, old prop guys grin into their sleeves. Down by the water, a kid on his dad's shoulders believes in magic permanently. Somewhere in the crowd, a buyer stops pretending he doesn't want one. Monday comes with polished shoes and the colour grey. The conference room smells like coffee that never had a chance, and paper that knows secrets. The pilot sits with his hat on his knee, and a face that says good morning instead of you're welcome. A question arrives that sounds like a gavel held politely behind a smile. What was that? The answer is tidy, showing confidence, selling airplanes. A pause. A nod. A simple rule lands in the middle of the table like a coaster. Don't do it again. You walk back to the ramp. The yellow ship gleams like it didn't even notice it made the weekend front page without trying. The phones start. The Air Force lines up for tankers with stainless straws and calm booms. Airlines call with voices that try to sound casual and fail. Schedules are suddenly a puzzle with too many good pieces. You feel the company's spine straighten. Now the careful part. You push the jet into corners where polite people never visit. Flutter dances near the edge, and you fix the music with a small fence on a wing. You chase hot day takeoff weight like a dieter chases a number that won't text back. You negotiate with brakes that try to turn landings into bonfires. You install better fans that feed the flame without burning the house. You drill the checklist deeper until even the trainee who forgets his lunch never forgets. Fuel, set, temps, watch. Engineers in white shirts run pressure rigs until rivet lines look like they sweat. You cycle doors until the latches dream about it. You pull a panel, peer into the crown, and see what you need to see. No sneaky cracks. No whispered bad news. You nod and put the skin back with a new, neat row of bucked smiles. Then, a call from an airline with blue globes and big plans. They want jets for oceans, but they also hedge, split orders, 2 vendors, 1 future. You keep your face the way you keep a straight line in turbulence. Calm, focused, breath even. You sign. You check your pulse later in a quiet stairwell that smells like paint and a little dust. Training changes shape. Crews learn V-speeds that matter the way birthdays matter. They learn to manage energy instead of just power. They learn the new sounds, start a whine, light off whoosh, the honest hiss of bleed air. They learn that quiet doesn't mean safe, and loud doesn't mean trouble. They memorize numbers like phone contacts you dial in the dark. You write manuals that don't lie. You hire teachers who don't shout. You build a sim that shakes just enough to scare and not enough to break. The captain steps out pale and grateful and says, "I learned something and I'm still here." You pat the sim's side like a dog that fetched heartbreak and brought back wisdom. Do you stamp go on production now and ride the wave, or hold for 3 more tests that only you will notice? Fast sells, care lusts, pick. Because the first scheduled jet walk-up with fresh uniforms and new wings pinned to smiling chests will lift off into a blue that belongs to all of us. And then your logo won't just mean airplanes, it will mean time itself got shorter. Dawn paints the terminal windows gold. The new airport names still taste odd in your mouth. The smell out here is perfume, coffee and jet fuel. A strange breakfast you learn to like. Inside the cabin, light pools on new fabric and polished trim. The ceiling arcs gentle. Vents sigh like the world's quietest harmonica. A steward checks a galley drawer that slides like butter and smiles a let's go smile that could sell anything. Boarding sounds different. Shoes on carpet, not the clatter up a rattly stair to a noisy prop. A kid presses his face to the small oval window and tries to count ground trucks that beep like stubborn alarm clocks. A couple tucks coats into overheads that finally fit more than wishful thinking. You stand in the aisle and run a palm along a storage bin just to feel the fit and finish you fought for. Engines light with that clean whine to roar you now hear in your sleep. The cabin hushes more than it should at a runway that long. Seatbelts click, a soft chorus. The checklist whispers through the cockpit, words you could mouth without. Thinking. Throttles forward. The shove is smooth, steady. The runway signs blink past like subway stops. Rotating now. Lift. City shrinks. Cloud layer like fresh sheets. You slide into the blue room above weather. Coffee does not slosh. A spoon behaves. Your shoulders drop an inch. The PA voice is calm and friendly. Altitude, time en route, weather where you're going. People nod like they have somewhere to be, and the airplane is a taxi, not a trial. A woman opens a book and reads 2 chapters without once holding onto the seat in front of her like it's a lifeline. A businessman checks his watch and smiles because dinner in the next city is no longer a flex, it's Tuesday. Airports hustle to catch up. Runways grow longer the way kids outgrow jeans. Sudden, obvious, expensive. Terminals sprout glass and terrazzo. Jet bridges swing out like friendly arms. Noise rules appear like new house rules after a broken lamp. Curfews, angles, procedures that keep the neighbours from declaring war in the local paper. You write engine start guidelines that protect both ears and windows. Engines evolve like phones do. Quieter, stronger, less thirsty, a little smug about it. Early turbojets sing but shout. New turbofans hum with a lower, gentler voice. You hang the newer ones under the wing and the captain's decibel budget thanks you. Fuel bills flinch a little less. The jet's climb gets kinder. Passengers stop saying what as often when they step off. Training becomes a culture, not a cram. Crews call V1, rotate, positive rate, clean, same every time, like a team that knows its lines. Standard call-outs turn strangers into a crew in 10 minutes. Checklists live on lips, on clipboards, in the muscle memory where panic goes to die. You don't take bows for this part, but you could. Arrival rolls out their own sleek bird with a smile that dares you to blink. You don't. You go to work. Range here, payload there, a short field cousin for the smaller cities that still want the jet smell in the morning. You sketch a shorter leg sister that lands where the concrete is shy. The world says thank you with tickets. Culture tilts. Movies show lovers kissing in gate areas under big windows. Magazine covers turn wing shots into art. The word overnight means something new, and half the world hates it and uses it anyway. Business deals jump time zones like puddles. Families stretch across oceans and still make birthdays. Mail starts to feel slow. Voices fly instead. The globe gets smaller in a way that makes arguments bigger and friendships easier. You lie in bed and think, we made the planet feel like a neighbourhood. Sometimes the neighbourhood argues in the group chat. Mostly it lends sugar. On the line, dispatch reliability climbs. Mechanics learn the jet's moods. They carry a new kit of tricks for hot starts and cold mornings. A ramp agent in a bright vest brushes frost off a pitot tube with the tenderness of someone, wiping a child's cheek. A captain cancels once because the page says cancel, and passengers grumble, and everyone goes home. And tomorrow the page will say go, and they will, because trust is a bank account and you keep making deposits. Marketing gets loud, but the cabin stays calm. Airlines name routes with grand words and sell the idea that time obeys you if you buy a seat. You smile because the product now matches the promise. You remember the first lift of the first prototype and the way your chest hurt from holding hope. You exhale. If you had to pick tonight, chase even more speed with sharper wings and fewer seats, or double down on comfort and bring the fare down so more people fly. What would you build? Fast for the few, or fast enough for everyone? Because in the next hangar a sketch leans on a wall that looks like a dare. 2 decks, a forehead that smiles, and a jaw big enough to swallow a train car of luggage. The kind of airplane you don't park, you host. And if you say yes, you won't just bet the brand, you'll bet gravity. Fog curls around your boots as you stand in a muddy field north of Seattle. Your breath shows. Survey stakes stick up like toothpicks in a cake you haven't baked. A bank calls your office phone so often you hear the ring in your sleep. You just promised the world 2 things you do not own yet. The biggest airplane anyone has ever seen, and the building to build it in. The engine partner brings a smile, a handshake, and drawings that look like hope on nice paper. You press your palm to chilled rebar. A bulldozer coughs to life and growls forward. The ground shakes like a large animal turning over. A gull laughs at you in a very judgmental way. You grin anyway. You whisper to the fog, "Watch this." Steel arcs rise. Beams land with a heavy, holy thud. The new factory smells like wet earth, ozone and fresh paint that stings your nose. Inside, air turns into weather. Clouds form near the ceiling on cold mornings and melt into a soft indoor rain by lunch. Forklifts learn to breathe quietly. The first jig goes down like a long spine. You stand on a catwalk and your stomach drops at the sight, a silver backbone that will carry cities. Now the odd question, where do you put the head? You draw a hump. Not cute, useful. You move the cockpit upstairs so the nose can open like a garage door for cargo someday. You add a small lounge at the top of a curved staircase, because a long flight should feel like a story, not a sentence. People call it silly until they see it. Then they touch the rail and smile like kids on a treehouse ladder. Wings spread on the floor like sleeping whales. You run a hand along a leading edge that looks thin until you learn what thin can do when it is strong. The wing root is so thick a person can stand inside it and feel small. The engine pods, when they finally arrive, hang like quiet barns. You listen to the first run, a silky roar that says I'm new, and I might bite. Temperatures twitch, bearings grumble. Everyone pretends not to clench their jaw. First taxi. The airplane looks wrong in the best way, too big to belong to gravity and too calm to care. The nose wheel draws a black line on concrete like a marker on a whiteboard. You feel the ground crew's eyes on your back. They're asking a question with their eyebrows. Are we really doing this? Yes. Yes, you are. Liftoff day tastes like coffee, metal, and someone's mint gum. The giant rolls, runs, breathes, and rises. People on country roads pull over and forget they are driving. Inside, the cockpit stays busy. The checklists sound like poetry written by a very serious librarian. Set, verify, cross-check. The big bird flies like a big bird should. Steady, polite, with hands light on the wheel. Landing writes 2 black commas on the runway. You keep the coffee down this time. Trouble visits because it always does. Engines run hot. Housings crack where no one wants a crack. The fix list fills a wall like sticky notes in a group project that got real. You add metal here, smooth a flow there, change a pipe's path, and print new pages for the book. You learn the sound of your own pen when it writes mandatory. Meanwhile, the cabin takes shape. Rows spread like dominoes in bright fabric. Galley carts click. The upper room glows like a small club with polite lighting and curved windows. You walk the aisle and it smells like new plastic, lemon oil, and the faint sweetness of fresh insulation. A worker taps the pressure door, listens for a tight little sound, and smiles. You learn to love that sound. On the ramp, a Blue Globe airline brings a handshake that feels like a wedding vow. You deliver the first queen. At the gate, stairs clatter. Passengers in Sunday clothes take selfies with cameras that use film and patience. The cabin lights dim. The doors close with a hush that feels final and kind. Brakes release. Wheels roll. You press your hand to the window as the giant leans, lifts, and writes a new line across the sky. Cities build longer runways because your big bird eats concrete like a teenager eats cereal. Towers learn to speak calmly to wings that block more sun. Baggage trucks grow muscles. Loading crews invent new dances with containers that slide and lock like Lego bricks. A hump mocked in sketches becomes a smile on strangers' faces. You try not to gloat. You fail a little. And still, at 2 a.m, alone in an office that smells like pencil shavings and late-night lies you tell yourself about going home soon, you stare at loan terms that blink like alerts on a tired phone. Interest looks like a cliff. Cash looks like a puddle. You circle a number until the ink bleeds. Outside, the plant glows like a small city under low cloud. A freight train moans. You ask the window, was the bet too big? The window keeps its old promise and tells you nothing. If you had to choose tonight, cut pace. To save cash and risk losing the world's trust, or push and risk the bank walking away, what do you pick? Say it in your head. Taste it. Because just when the Queen crowns you, a winter is coming that empties parking lots and teaches Seattle a joke no one forgets. The phone rings less. The parking lot's thin. A billboard goes up near the freeway like a punchline. Will the last person leaving please turn out the lights? It's not funny when you drive past it. You keep the sign in your mind anyway, as if looking at it too long makes it true. Orders pause. Airlines count pennies with tweezers. You learn the sound of a plant that hums at half volume. Softer, echoey, shy. You fold the big line into slow motion and walk over to smaller wings. A short-field jet with 3 engines and a T-tail hums in one bay. A stubby sibling with 2 underwing engines learns to love short hops in another. The little one becomes a friend to places with short concrete and long winters. Mechanics talk about quick turns, the way short-order cooks talk about breakfast rush. The company feels 2 sizes at once. Coat too big, shoes too small. You sketch 2 new twins side by side, one narrow, one wide. The narrow one carries people to medium places with grace. The wide one goes ocean with just 2 engines and a ton of math. Rules change. Trust grows. What used to take 3 or 4 engines now takes 2 and a deep faith in numbers that do not blink. You run tests that make regulators raise eyebrows and then nod. You print rules in thick black. Watch the weather. Respect the route. Count minutes like gold. Then you start something different. A big twin you design with flyers at the table. Chairs fill with captains, mechanics, dispatchers, flight attendants. They tell you where switches go, how a seat should slide, where a cup spills if you put the holder here instead of there. You listen. You write working together on a whiteboard and mean it. You invite argument and hold the door open for it. You feed everyone pizza that tastes like paper plates and victory. The airplane that comes out of that room looks like a hug for the whole crew. Paper drawing boards move to screens with fat backs and buzzing fans. You click a mouse and parts grow in wireframe. You turn them with a wrist flick. You spin a fuselage section like a globe and check a fit without cutting a single slice of wood. Lasers mark floor tracks on bare metal, and the first seat frame lands perfect. The shop smells less like sawdust, more like ozone and coffee. The young engineer calls from the other side of the world at 2 a.m, because time zones are now optional in the worst way. Rollout day for the big twin tastes like frost and flashbulbs. The engines are so wide a child can stand inside the mouth. Nobody lets them. The landing gear looks like a kneeling animal ready to spring. The cockpit glows soft green and amber. You rest your hands on the yoke and feel a gentle electric nudge, but a fly-by-wire that behaves like a good friend. Helpful, quiet, never showing off. The first landing kisses concrete like a secret. You exhale a month's worry in one long gust. Airlines lean in. They like fuel numbers that act polite. They like maintenance doors that open without swear words. They like a cabin that stays calm and a cockpit that tells the truth even when it hurts. You put a sticker above the door to final assembly that says, "No surprises, only because fewer surprises look sad." Out on the line, the little sibling grows into a family. Longer, then longer again, then wearing winglets like tidy ears that save fuel one quiet sip at a time. Small airports cheer. The world knits tighter. You watch the map and see threads pull together. The big queen keeps crossing oceans with her upper deck smile, but the twins start winning the math fights. At your desk, a letter sits from a city far away asking for jobs for Pride for a plant that changes a skyline. You read it twice. You think about trains, barges, taxes, and 1,000 lunch breaks. You think about your people, their hands, their eyes at 4 a.m. You keep the letter under a paperweight shaped like a tiny airplane. You do not answer yet. Years blur the way rain on a bus window blurs lights. You attend retirement cakes with frosting that tastes like nostalgia. You shake hands with kids whose grandparents taught them which way a rivet smiles. The brand name on the hanger feels heavy and light at once. History and homework in the same font. Then the idea arrives that makes your heart tap double. Composites. Electric systems that do more. Windows that dim themselves like sunglasses. A body that is less metal and more woven promise. Less bleed air. More wires and watts. You touch a carbon panel and it feels like a violin took a deep breath and turned into a wall. Lighter, stronger, trickier, fussier. Do you keep polishing metal, you know? Or do you step into fibres, resins, batteries, and the kind of global build that turns your passport into a punch card? Say it out loud in your head. Because in the next bay, a black and white barrel waits inside a giant oven that hisses like a dragon. When the door opens, you step into a future that smells like warm plastic, hot glue, and opportunity that can burn your fingers if you rush. You stand by an autoclave big enough to hide a bus. The door unlocks with a sigh and swings wide. Heat rolls out, sweet and plastic, like a new car, and a glue stick had a quiet child. A composite barrel emerges, shiny and striped, light under your palm in a way your brain does not trust yet. You knock with your knuckles. The sound is tight, high, confident. You teach yourself a new listening. Work changes. Instead of thousands of little panels, you bond big pieces with exact edges and stubborn rules. Lightning needs a path, so you add a hidden mesh to give the sky a polite exit. The floor hums with torque tools tuned like pianos. The tech reads a laptop, not a paper card, and smiles when a green bar fills to the end like a download that finally behaves. The cabin wakes like a dawn. Windows grow larger and learn to dim at a touch. The air is wetter, kinder. The pressure is lower in the good way. A passenger steps off and says, "I don't feel wrecked," and you put that sentence in a frame. The aisle glows soft. The bins swallow rollerboards without groans. The crew likes the galley that stops fighting back. Delays arrive with little suitcases and bad moods. Schedules slide. Supply chains tangle across oceans like earbuds in a pocket. The battery gets too hot and reminds you that electrons are wonderful until they are not. Regulators fold arms. You breathe, fix, test, repeat. You fly again with layers of care. New cases, new ducts, new pages in the book that smell like fresh ink and relief. The first long, thin route takes off with a hum you could fall asleep to. No stop, no hub. A straight line where curvy ones used to live. The map learns to draw different. Families skip layovers that once ate birthdays. Business travellers step off, shower, and go to meetings as if geography is a suggestion. In the factory, a screen glows with a world map pricked with dots. Wings here, doors there, tail cones. Somewhere breakfast is still happening. Video calls blink to life like porch lights. Someone coughs, someone laughs, someone's dog barks, and you still manage to line up a rivet with a hole an ocean away. It feels like magic, until it feels like normal. Then the old question returns, dressed in new clothes. Speed or soul? Spreadsheet or craft? You hold up two parts, one cheaper and quick with a tolerance that just kisses the line, the other slower, nicer, heavy with pride. The budget looks at you like a push notification that won't go away. A mechanic with silver in his hair looks at you like a teacher who believes you can do better. You choose, you sign, you sleep, or you stare at the ceiling. Both happen. A ceremony fills the hangar with music that tries too hard and smiles that don't. A new bird wears a paint job that looks like a dream you can actually touch. A child waves a tiny flag. A grandmother wipes an eye with a tissue that smells like mint. A pilot touches the nose and whispers something between a prayer and a joke. The airplane hums on the ramp, alive without moving. Night falls. You stay late. The plant empties to a hush that sounds like rain on a tent. You walk the line alone, hands in pockets, boots quiet on clean floor. You stop at a workbench. A small steel washer sits there, round, plain, perfect. You flick it. It spins. It hums. A small silver planet on a bright table. You watch it circle, wobble, recover, circle again. You think about the boat shed by the lake and damp rope that smelled like coffee. You think about the letter that bit and the gavel that echoed. About a list you wrote with shaking hands that now lives in every cockpit mouth. About a fortress with teeth and a round room that rose above weather. About a hump you drew with a pencil. A billboard you didn't laugh at. A mouse that drew an airplane. A barrel that came out of an oven and said, "Trust me." You think about hands. Young, old, scarred, steady. Touching metal and fibre. Turning bolts. Signing lines. Far down the hall, a pager chirps once and then gives up. Outside, the river moves like time that refuses to hurry. Your phone lights with a message you don't open. You listen to the washer sing its small song. Would you slow this spin by laying a finger on it? Choose calm, choose caution, choose craft even when the world chants faster? Or would you let it whirl, chase speed, feed charts, live on edge, and hope your lists catch you every time? The washer wobbles, you lean closer, it steadies, then flirts with a fall, then steadies again. Your breath fogs a tiny circle on the polished tabletop. The hum softens, your heart matches it, beat for beat. You lift your hand, not touching, almost touching. The washer tilts one more time, as if deciding what kind of story it wants to live in. Cut to black.